Everton said politely. I held his gaze for 3 seconds, and then sat down, not taking my eyes off his. He opened the sheet and brought my look to do so. When he looked back, I could see the fear in his light blue eyes. I'd written "you" in big letters underneath. After school, I was to be picked up by Brenda. I made a point of being first out the door and walking so slow I was the last out of the playground. They all had to pass me to leave. They couldn't say I ran. Mark walked with Will at a great distance, then went over to his parents, all smiles. I looked at Brenda, stood where my mum should have been. "Good day," she said, all fake smiles. I flashed her a smile and got in the Mazda. High Street was actually a really good school. Mrs. Evanton taught me a lot, and I actually learnt to respect her. I noticed as I grew older I was learning more that women were equal and to be cared for. But before this, the most important thing Brenda had done for me, to make me realise that some of my actions were plain wrong. I can't remember what Caroline had said, but I'd lashed out and I'd hit her. "That didn't hurt," I said, mimicking Wenzel. "Did he hit you?" Brenda piped up from behind me. "It's okay," Caroline said, nervously. "Say you're sorry," Brenda squealed. "No," I replied. "Say you're sorry now," she said this time, less harshly. "No," I huffed. I wasn't expecting it. Brenda grabbed me and pinned my arms to my sides. "The fuck are you doing, you stupid bitch? Let go," I yelled. "Hit him back," Brenda said to Caroline calmly. Caroline looked gobsmacked. "Go on, hit him back," Brenda said. I threw all number of obscenities at Caroline, and a fair few at Brenda. I don't remember if Caroline did hit me or not. I remember storming off. Most importantly, what I do remember is when I was held, I knew I could get out. I knew I could theoretically hit both Brenda and Caroline. But I didn't want to. I didn't actually want to hurt them. I didn't want to be like Wenzel. I realised in that moment I was turning into him with my actions. I was angry with Brenda, yeah, real angry. I knew I'd make her pay for that one sooner or later. I'd not forget easily. But in another way I was relieved. Women made us. I'd learnt it somewhere. Without women we wouldn't be alive. Brenda made me realise I shouldn't ever hit a woman, and I stuck to it. Brenda and Jim were forever going on that I should call them Mum and Dad. It was done politely. "Tracie, you can call me Mum if you want to." I'd started by saying no, to which she'd reply, "But if you want to, you can, you know." I suppose she was trying to be nice, but it was just pissing me right off. Nobody had replaced Mum. In the end, I'd just say, "I know," and she'd leave it until the next day. Jim only did it a couple of times, so I just looked at him like he was an idiot. That's how I eventually got her back, and made myself feel bad in the process. I'd presume she was just being a cow all this time to get a rise out of me or exert her control like Wenzel had. I'd concluded there was no way she could actually care. She got paid to look after us, and had 3 kids of her own. She must just want to feel like she's doing a good job and being nice in the process. Well, nice comes from wanting to, not from being paid to. That's how I justified it. She tried to hug me a few times. I didn't like it, or understand it. It was Mother's Day. Brenda was in bed and all her kids and Caroline had gone and given her a card or a gift. I knocked on the door and was told to come in. We were never allowed in. Little Jim, Caroline and Bob were already in there. She waved them out when she saw it was me. She had a nightgown on. I'd never seen her in a nightgown before. Somehow it made her look more human. She came around the bed and saw the card. "For me?" she asked delicately. I threw my arms around her. She held me for too many seconds, and I stepped back. "Happy Mother's Day," I said, and held the card out to her. She looked truly delighted. She opened it, and her face fell rapidly, and a part inside of me died too. Inside I'd written, "You're not my mum, and you never will be." I put my best stern face on, and smiled, looking through her eyes. I held it for 2 seconds, turned on my heel and walked out. I was unhappy with myself for upsetting her. Maybe she was genuine, but I was defending Mum. My mum, who nobody would replace. Brenda never asked again, and seemed to accept I'd be my own person. I ate with the family, abided mostly by their rules, but I was out whenever I could be, reading or on the games console. I didn't like people. I liked being alone. I was safe alone. So were other people. Safe from me, and safe from dying. I hurt everything I touched, and I'd proved it by how I'd treated Brenda. I'd been sent to a scout group once a week and a swimming club too. I figured they wanted me out of the way, which worked for me because that's exactly where I wanted to be. At first I hated swimming, I couldn't do it, and after being thrown in by Wenzel, large amounts of water scared me. Inside a year I was going for my life-saving certificate. I really enjoyed it. Scouts was 10 times better. Our leader Larry was 5'0", balding, quietly spoken man who ran the whole like a military camp. We had first aid training, bivouacking, knot making, camping, canoeing, orienteering, survival hikes, volleyball, raft making, amongst a million other things. I was at home here. I learnt to build a shelter from scratch, how to make traps, first aid, and generally how to survive with nothing. Larry wouldn't always announce first aid training. He'd teach us 1 week, then the following week we'd be playing football and an event would occur. Usually it'd be something simple. He'd run in. A boy fell from a tree outside. He'd point at who was to handle it and off we'd go. The injured lad would take a fake tot and pretend to have a broken arm. He'd tell us if it was supposed to be jutting out or anything. However, on one occasion, and not knowing my past, Larry took it a little bit far. We were building indoor tents from poles and canes when Larry ran in and looked genuinely panicked. Matt's fallen down, Matt's down, he said, waving his arm around. Matt was a friend of mine. I'd camped with him a few times, a good lad and a quiet lad. He had a good sense of humour, he was harmless. If Larry was panicking, then something was certainly wrong. He's not breathing, he said as I reached him. I was on autopilot. I wasn't even asked to assist. I ran past Larry into where I saw Matt on the floor on his back, a stick poking through his stomach. Unbeknown to me, it had been totally faked by a piece of foam underneath his shirt. There was no blood. Matt, can you hear me? I said calmly. Matt, I asked again. He's not breathing, Larry shouted, stamping foot to foot. I grabbed Bacon Egg, who was 2 feet taller than me and a few years older. Get him out of here, now, I said, shoving Larry towards the door. Bacon Egg took him outside. No time to waste. I leaned down next to Matt and listened for air with my ear whilst looking at his chest. Nothing. Sorry, mate, this might hurt, I said, opening his mouth. Airway clear, I said out loud. Breathing? I asked myself. His chest wasn't moving. No breathing, but he had a heartbeat. I put my fingers on his solar plexus and linked my fingers. 1, 2, I counted. I got to 3 as Matt started coughing and laughing. Larry dragged me away, suddenly calm. Ambulance, where's the fucking ambulance? I asked on the floor, being held by Larry. It was a test, Tracie, Larry said calmly. No, fuck the test, he needs an ambulance, I said. Then I heard Matt laughing, looked over to see him pull the stick out. Sorry, man, I was holding my breath, he said as I walked off. Images of Nan and Alan engraved themselves back into my brain stronger than before. I was outside the patrol headquarters fuming at my friend Bacon Egg. I'd met him because he was extremely tall and had a wonky haircut. He had an infectious smile and everyone called him Bacon Egg. One day I asked him, why do they call you Bacon Egg? And he laughed. Sounds very similar to my surname. So? I asked. Well, it sounds like it, so they call me it, he replied. Okay, I said, unamused. Which do you prefer? I asked him. I don't mind, he said, but I could tell he was lying. You're Bacon Egg, I said. Yeah, he replied. We'd been friends since. Must have looked comical though, me storming up and down outside the hall, going off on a lad 4 times my size. Who the fuck does he think he is? Larry, a scout leader. Shit, I liked him. And Matt? For fuck's sake, all fake. All fake. Whenever I said all fake, Bacon Egg would calmly say, yes. Otherwise he said nothing. It wasn't till I said, I'm going to go back now, get out of my way, I'll show him a fucking accident, he was a friend. Then Bacon Egg said ever so calmly, he didn't know. Bacon Egg knew about my past. Neither of them knew, he said. It's not the fucking point, I said, covering my face to stop the tears from flowing. I'm the only one who went out there to help, and I couldn't save her, Matt. I couldn't save her, Matt. I couldn't save Matt. I stormed, half tears, half anger. It's okay, Matt's fine, Bacon said softly. Somehow I'd convinced myself that Matt was dead. He came out of the headquarters. You okay, mate? He asked me. I lifted his shirt up. He was fine. You pull that shit again, I said, choking down a cry, and broke into a grin. Matt was okay. I like Matt. He laughed. I'd learnt to listen to my intuition, even when it was totally wrong. I didn't know what intuition was, but I knew the feelings that spoke to me. They had warned me of danger with Wenzel many times. And they were there when I had to get help for Nan and Alan, and again when I went into care. So when I stood there at the top of a bloody big hill on a scout camp, next in line to use the zip wire, I could see going way, way down into the distance. And I felt, no, don't go. I listened. I stepped back, despite being next in line. You're up next, mate, I said to my friend, also called Tracie. He was well built, with long light brown hair. The girls loved him because of his looks, and the guys loved him because he was hilarious. He nodded and grabbed the handle, slipped his legs through the hoist, and off he went. He was 3/4 of the way down when the line broke, and he went face first into a log at the bottom. I was shocked, but not surprised. I'd seen Nan twice before. Maybe she was protecting me. It didn't make me feel better about poor Tracie, though, especially seeing him walk around for the next hour holding a tissue to his bloodied nose. I'm Tracie Daly. Take care of yourselves and each other.